It's a very special occasion, actually, and it's great to be with you today. I've not shaken everybody's hands yet in this room. It is my goal to shake the hand of everyone and meet everyone here over time. I'm able to put enough names with faces now. We've collaborated together, many of us, to help make today possible. What is today? This is not the first step at all, because we've made a lot of steps that lead up to this. But in speaking with people in my first month on the job on the ground, and several months before that, I've been trying to learn a lot, and I have learned a lot. And I've been asking for people's insights into what makes us who we are, how are things working, what's the best, what's the worst, what do we really need to concentrate on, what can I do as a new president to serve and to help this community move forward to where it wants to go. And I've got a wide variety of inputs on that, and there's a lot to do, and a lot of it needs to be done fast. But the first sort of basket of things that really became clear, especially after meeting with the parents and the students, was we really need to concentrate on us as a community, and we need to rethink, reimagine who we are, how we live together, what we do, how do we make our everyday experience positive, better, productive, fulfilling? How do we accomplish our core business of education, which includes research, of course, but education. And education is a holistic thing. It's not simply going to the classroom, but it's all the things that gets students, prospective students, excited about AUC, how we select them, how we bring in the right people, how we set them up for success, how we help them find their way forward through the maze of options that are available, how we get the right resources to students, to faculty, how do we get outside resources in. There's a lot to do. So I'd like to think of us as having a great conversation for whatever amount of time I'm able to have here. I hope it'll be a good number of years. An ongoing conversation about reimagining our lives together, reimagining life at the American University in CAIRO. And then we have to take it down from that 100,000-foot level in outer space through the theoretical zone of the atmosphere down to the application here on planet Earth in the real world. And as we do that, we can do it in a methodical way. It's wonderful to be in academia where we have so many experts in so many things. It's wonderful to work with the provost who is himself an engineer and is able to deconstruct things at this level. So today we wanted to start with reimagining student life in particular, and what we've done together in the first few weeks of my time here to get that underway. I wanted to take a minute to thank Dr. Khalid Dahawi, who is not with us today. I spoke with him last night. He's begun his family vacation early this morning. We misset the date, I guess, but I warned him I was going to say nice things about him, and I'd rather he be present. He is very much in the present, not the past. We have, as you know, and as we'll explain in detail, sought to reintegrate the functions that were under the vice president. That was an experiment meant to bring together the diverse functions that impact student life, student experience, services to the student, communications with the students and the parents who brought them here and who keep them here through paying such tuition rates, the highest in Egypt, certainly. Dr. Khalid has done a lot to bring us where we are today, and he's very much a part of the process of reimagining student life here, and has promised us he will keep doing that through this current year and as he returns to his full-time teaching duties next year. So he's very much with us, very much part of not just the good things of the past that brought us here, but where we're going from here. I wanted to reassure everybody about that. With that, I'll let the details be explained by my colleagues here. I wanted to especially thank Ms. Alia, the president of the Parents Association, because we are not going to be able to reimagine life here unless all members of the community, all constituents of the community are together in this process. Who more than the parents care about our students? Not even we in the administration, not even we in the faculty who care very much and are giving our working lives to this, care more than the parents do. I think the parents care more than the students themselves about the students. That's typical of parents. So we wanted to build this around the parents' insights into what's working and not working. They're going to be the first ones to hear the students' complaints, even though we hear them too. The parents will hear them in richer detail, I'm sure. And as I say, are the primary stakeholders in terms of enabling this university to exist, since 60% of our resources come from the sacrifices that the parents make in paying the tuition. So Ms. Alia, thank you very much not only for joining us, but I asked her, she's made so many contributions so far, I've asked her to speak for herself and for the parents on several initiatives they've proposed and we have warmly embraced in the administration and mean to support, including, I don't want to steal your best lines, but the thing that delights me the most is having a full-time parent presence in an office on the campus, and I'll let you speak to that because that really delighted me. I think that means we're really going to get somewhere. So Ms. Alia, if you would begin, and then we'll make time for Executive Vice President and the Provost, and we'll open it to comments and questions. Thank you all very much for coming.
Good evening, everybody. Is okay? Good evening, everybody. I'm honored as a Parent Association member to be here and represent and share this, I think, very important moment in AUC's life. We as Parent Association see ourselves as a channel or a link between parents, students, and AUC body. It actually stole my moment, and I was glad to announce that for the first time that we have a full-time office dedicated to us and a full-time admin also dedicated to us. Hope this will make us more approachable and more close to you. I mean by AUC community, not just parents. I also seize this moment to talk about our two very strong, I feel about personally, these two projects that we're gonna run this year. We have non-smoking awareness campaign in which we were not only highlighting the long-term and short-term side effects of smoking, not just on health, but on your behavior as well. We also will have, with the help of Dr. Amin and the clinic, a tailored curing program designed by the clinic, of course. Our second project is safe driving. Unfortunately, we see every day or hear about terrible accidents happening on our highway roads. I saw today 2 accidents while coming here to AUC. Unfortunately, AUC is not an exception, and we hear about our sons and daughters facing this kind of accidents. Some of them are fatal, unfortunately. So we're planning to do something about this. Now since we have an office, please knock our door and give us your ideas, your thoughts, be volunteers with us, Yarit. We'll always be open to you and wish we reach you more. Thank you, President, for giving us the support, and thank you all.
Oh, I'm here. Okay. So you're going to move me, or am I? Okay. I started to move the Provost's slide deck by mistake, so apologize for that. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to. Okay. Perfect. Okay. No. We're good? Okay. Thanks very much. So with the aid of a few slides, let me talk about part of our vision, which is to increase the utilization of the new CAIRO campus and to build more life on campus, more opportunities for our students and all members of the university community to use this wonderful campus, which as you may or may not know, has a value of more than $400 million. And it's an asset that we're very proud of. We can certainly use a whole lot more than we've been using over the first 8 years of its operation. So our goal is to do, as I said, to increase the utilization of the campus, and we believe that the restructuring will allow us to take forward a number of important steps. One is by going forward, we intend to have very strong collaboration and communication with all of the academic programs and services. We also believe that it's a time to think differently about how we deliver our services and how they link together. And we will continue to encourage the voice of all of the AUC community through users groups and advisory committees to push us to say, how can we raise the bar with respect to the quality of services? Is the access right? Are we ensuring that we're being as cost conscious as possible with respect to the services? In terms of the recently announced structure, we have now in a bundle a range of campus services that include athletics, food services, the medical clinic, residential life, our engineering and facilities cluster, faculty housing and transportation, and sustainability. And I announced earlier this week that we have a new AVP for campus services joining us on November 1st, and Noel Neal is really excited about joining the AUC community, and I think will help us all in terms of rethinking the various supports that we have. So from the perspective of the resource side of the institution, we're looking forward with great enthusiasm to continuing to support the reason why the university exists, which is to support our students and to have very strong and direct linkages with our academic programs, and the provost and I get to spend more time together every day. So that's the short story from the EVP side, and I'll now turn this over to the provost and questions later. Thank you very much.
So good afternoon, and it's a pleasure to meet you today and to continue our discussion about how can we fulfill the strategic vision and to fulfill the mission of the university through another major step forward, where we look of integrating the student life and all the student affairs within the academic area and to better serve our mission. If we just look at the vision for the journey of the student throughout the university, we would like to have a more diversity of the students' nationality. So for the national and the international students, we need to have better diversity. And I will just give you more details about that, but this is one of the main missions, is to have a diverse environment and diverse culture here. In addition, we need to rethink and reimagine the intellectual character of AUC, and how can we enhance and foster this character. So what can we do to improve this throughout this transformation? And how can we merge various cultures together? And this is one of the main missions of AUC. Can we combine all the different cultures together? How can we enrich and broaden the student experience at AUC? AUC is quite unique for the students, and students should get the maximum benefit, not only academically, but to get a full experience throughout their journey in the university. Another mission of the university is the community engagement at all levels, and how can we enhance this, and how can this merge, support such type of engagement? And finally, we look at the future of our students and how can we enhance the employability. So the restructuring is done to fulfill this vision for the student journey throughout the university. So if we just look at the current distribution of the student nationality, we'll find that we have around 94.5% of our student body Egyptians between graduate and undergraduate, and 5.5 international. Our target is to increase this up to 15% within the next 3 years. So by 2019, so by the 100th centennial, inshallah, we will aim at getting the percentage of the international students to 15%. And the reason for this is that this is the distribution of the international students since 1993 to date. And you see that there are lots of variations in the percentage. Started with 20%, it dropped down, but actually we had a big hit after the revolution. So what we need to do is to restore ourselves prior to the revolution. So that's why we are looking at this percentage. Looking at our student body, so the Egyptian population of the students, we'll see that most of our students are from CAIRO. So it's the American University in CAIRO. So we're literally implementing this to be really most of the students from CAIRO. So we have almost more than 70% of the students, and then the rest, 20% almost from Giza. So this will constitute almost 90%. And the rest, 4% from Alexandria, and the rest from the other governorates. So we need to rethink this and have a better impact of AUC on the community. And we can consider to shrink a little bit the percentage of students coming from CAIRO and Giza and expand a little bit more for other governorates, similar to what happened with the LEAD program. So getting more diverse, there are lots of implications associated with this, and we have to work the whole structure to serve this purpose, which is well aligned with the mission of AUC. So that's why you will see the various components of the system will be aligned together to fulfill this mission and this vision. The other challenge that we have is related to the diversity of the high school certificates that we have. So if you look at this pie chart, you'll find that almost 70% of our certificates is between American Diploma and IGCSE. Very small percentage from the Sanawiyya Amma, and other high school certificates and diplomas have a very small contribution here. So we would like to revisit this and look at a completely different distribution where we can have a better mix of students and better talented students on campus. To fulfill this, I'll just start to introduce the new structure and how the different components will be aligned and merged together to fulfill this mission. So starting with our recruitment and admissions. So we'd like to have a more holistic approach for the admission where we can really identify talent. So we need to have a more rigorous process to deter, not only to base our admission process on the high school grades, but there should be a more diverse dynamics to determine and to identify the talented students. And this will really impact the university and get better admissions. Getting the students throughout the university, there are lots of things that we have to do for the students. We have to do good orientation and mentoring for the students throughout their journey in the university. The first thing the student get into the university, this is a liberal art education system where the student need to discover himself. And there are lots of parts, as we discussed in the Provost Forum, how can the student discover himself? And the dynamics here will involve the faculty to give them awareness about the different measures, but that's not sufficient. It's also their future, which is the career planning. So here, another integral component within the system is the planning for the future. So that's why the career advising and placement services is quite an integral part here for the students as they are recruited and admitted to the students just to determine their future. And there is a very important role for the career advising services here is how can we get the appropriate engagement of the community within the academic area? How can we get the buy-in of the community and see what we are doing? And how can we reshape our graduate to better fit into the needs of the community? And at the same time, how can we see what are the shortfalls within our system to better serve the community? And to educate the community about the latest developments in sciences and social sciences and engineering and business, and all the various disciplines that you are offering, and try these companies and the community to cope with such development. So it's a two-way development process, and here there is lots of pivotal roles that should be integrated all together. In addition to the mentoring and advising processes that should be integrated within the process, and the registrar plays a very pivotal role throughout the system, providing data, getting all the records of the students appropriate, helping us in making the appropriate decisions for the various measures. So all these different functions should be well integrated together. And it will also serve our international student pool, whether they are non-degree or they are degree-seeking students. And all this should be integrated all together under one umbrella, which will be the Associate Provost for Strategic Enrollment and Management, and that's the role of Dr. Ahmed Tolba. So Dr. Ahmed Tolba will be taking this role, where all the various functions will be all integrated together. The other part of the house would be the student life, and how can we align the student life to what we are doing. So first of all, once we admit the students to the university, we need to have an appropriate orientation and a very diverse orientation mechanism that helps the student to understand the university, if they are international students, how they can understand the country, how can they explore themselves, what are they expected to do and what they're expecting to get from the university, getting a much more hands-on experience, knowing the different constituents of the university. So the orientation part is quite important, it's quite an integral part, and it will be an ongoing process throughout the student's journey in the university. In addition, if we are talking about diversifying the student body, there should be a unit responsible for the diversity and advocacy. And how can we understand each other? How can we appreciate each other? How can we accommodate differences in thoughts and ideas? And if there are lots of problems that we encounter throughout the life in the university, how can we handle these problems? In addition, we need this campus to be more lively. We need more student engagement. So there will be a unit where we have the student engagement and how it's linked to the residential life, how it's linked to the development of the students, and how it can be connected to the various activities on board. Another important part would be the student well-being. So normally, the students throughout the university faces lots of problems, and these problems might not be well understood by the community here. The community means the colleagues or the professors or the students. And we need to get better awareness of this. We have lots of challenges like learning disabilities. How can we deal with such problems? This is something that should be critically handled by the faculty, by staff, by the student colleagues, and so forth. So there should be the unit of the student and well-being taking care of the different challenges that the students face, and how can the community appreciate. So this is a collective effort here. It's not only the role of Dr. Ola, who is taking care of this part. It's a collective effort where all the community should be able to understand what are the challenges facing the students and how can we help them to get out of this problem. Whether this is a psychological problem, it's a learning disability, whatever challenge the student faces, it should be identified, and the community should have enough awareness to identify such problems and deal with such problems. And finally, how can we help the international students to have an enjoyable and fruitful journey throughout their life here? And all these functions will be integrated together under the umbrella of Dean of Students. And I have the pleasure to announce that Dr. George Marquis will be the Dean of Students, who will just integrate all these different components together, integrated with the other part of the strategic enrollment management. And I'm sure that both Dr. Tolba and Dr. Marquis will make a big impact of the university on the students and impact of the university on the community. This is a very critical transition, and it requires the collective efforts and collaboration of all the constituents here of the community. So that's in brief the transitions and how the various components are foreseen to be integrated. It's quite important to have the big picture of all the transitions and how can we help each other to get this as a real success. Thank you very much, and now it's open for questions if you. As you like, you want to ask?
Okay, I'm sorry, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Amr Al-Alfi, Student Union President. I just have a concern. It's just a small question, of course. International student life. My small concern about that is that the whole point of the student engagement and residential life is that the international students are part of it. So it's me just talking, or it's just me thinking out loud that international students are a huge part of the engagement, and it doesn't need to be like totally a different sector. So if we aim for like integrating a different perspective of international students being part of this body, I think that we need to stop the whole atmosphere of making for them everything aside. Like they have their own office and they have their own student life. So I think they have the same student life as we do.
Thank you for clarifying this point. It's not the isolation of their student life, it's the recruitment of the international students and all the affairs of bringing over the international students on campus. This is not the international student life. It's all the recruitment part and how can we get so this have two components. One component under the Dean of Students, another component under the Associate Provost for Strategic Enrollment. So there are parts of agreements with various universities abroad to get international students and in exchange programs, or to have the recruitment process and the bringing over of the international students on campus. So this unit is mainly concerned with dealing with the international students to be brought on campus. It's not the international student life. We need the campus to be more internationalized and the students to be more international. So thank you for bringing this point. Yes. Yes.
Can you hear me? I don't think, okay. So my name is Heather Hunt. I am an international student and I'm also a teaching assistant. And you made a big point about how you want to boost the intellectual community here. And I think I was a bit shocked at the fact that students can miss up to 6 days of class, which equals basically 1 month. And I've noticed as a teaching assistant that my students are not coming to class because they're allowed this free pass, so to speak. It's very strange for me coming from an American university, and I think for the European students as well, it's a bit strange. So I don't know how all that got worked out, but that's one point I'd like to make is I think you may want to relook at the attendance policies, because if you want to boost the intellectual community, just being able to skip school is not what the parents are paying for, and it's not going to help their experience at this university. B, I feel like it's a bit chaotic all the time. I think something was mentioned about bringing in more food vendors, maybe bringing in some vending machines for water because it's hard to get water. Students are standing in these massive lines. Actually, they're not lines. They're a bit of a fight all the time to get drinks. And so then they're late for class because they can't get the things that they need. And I feel for them, and I feel for the faculty as well. This isn't just a student issue, it's also the professors that are struggling every day. So I think that that's also a place that needs to be re-examined.
Thank you very much for bringing this. Brian, would you like to comment on this?
I would love to. No. I said during the presentation that we very much want to increase the quality of campus services and access to campus services, and certainly availability of food and beverage on campus is something that we have to pay attention to. We do have a food services advisory committee that has representation from the students, and Wafa Sadak is our lead administrator for food services. No question we can do more with respect to access. Using vending machines as another convenient way of allowing people access to things like bottled water would clearly be a good thing to do.
Just one thing, I think that maybe something that could be implemented is lines. Like, you know, at the TBS, instead of having this swarm all, like this free-for-all and this fight, and I've got to admit, I start in on the fight to get something because people don't stand in line and there's no structure. So maybe if there's a way that we could all come together to work together on organization, it might actually speed up the process. And I don't know how to implement that, but
Yes, Amr.
Well, I think I need you to come to my office to work things out because I have the same problems. But there's something that I really want to clarify about the attendance policy that you said. This was there's a huge part of the University Senate that was working a lot on such policy. Part of being intellectual, and this is totally my perspective, and I think we were very aligned with that. That part of being intellectual as a student, that you're supposedly engaged with the community in different aspects of AC. So if we're talking about only academia, we only have the part of you're taking the courses and you're going through the academic life. There's another life that we're talking about here. And I think this is what the provost is trying to introduce, is the whole aspect of you being engaged in other activities and other things that it should be being intellectual. So it's the product of you being a mix between an academia and the activities also. Well, it's not still an excuse for the absences that I believe you're not with, but still, as a student, we face a lot of things. We face a huge, not only the resistance, but we're put in situations that we go to conferences, we go in sports, we go through activities, we go participate in stuff, and it's not that the policy is for taking for granted for just I'm going to be absent because I don't want to go, but it's supposedly being used because it's for your emergencies that you're participating in something that makes you also intellectual. That's it. Thank you.
Dr. Basil, and then
Thank you, Dr. Sharif. Thank you, Dr. Sharif. I just wanted to question, why are you saying that if it is better to reduce the diploma, for example, people that are coming from 25% to 15%, based on what? How do you calculate this idea of diversity, and how do we kind of change that? Along that question, how do you think will that work strategically into trying to allow other students from other areas to get engaged or be interested in the AUC? We have some pretty difficult restrictions, the idea of the expenses, the idea of the language, and the idea of the limited kind of education concept and logic between the liberal arts and between that mostly the AUC will cater for people to kind of move abroad after that. So how do you think that will strategically work?
So thank you very much for this good question that addresses the core of this transition. So the main mission of the university is to outreach education to any talented student, wherever they are coming from. First of all, if you just look at this distribution, it's not an even or fair distribution of the various certificates, and it needs to be changed. These numbers are just an initial assumption for having a much more uniform and much more contribution and presence of other certificates. As we go, this will be fine-tuned, and there will be feedback from the system to see whether the targeted set it here are feasible or not. But you are true, there are lots of other things that need to be done, and I slightly touched based on that. Like, you need to have more scholarships to the system to support the students. So most of the talented, some of the talented students might not be capable to pay the tuition fees, and the requirements for more scholarships will be there. In addition, the whole introduction system of AUC to the students will be changed. So they will need to be getting more intensive English courses. It might be 1 or 2 years of intensive English. This should be accommodated. So there are lots of things to be done. You will not put the language as a barrier against getting a talented student here, but the system should understand what are the various challenges that's needed, how to bring the talented students up to the international standards, and how can you provide international education to the students, whether the nationally, regionally, internationally. Yes, Ran.
I I just want to answer Dr. Basil about how can we have this number of certain certificates. First of all, whom I'm not lucky enough to meet before, my name is Randa Cameron, I work at the Office of Enrollment. It's according to the number of applications we have. 15%, for instance, for high school diploma, so we accept 15% with this, and this is our cutoff score. What's happening now in Egypt that the only 2 certificates that the tuition fees in schools are almost near AUC are these 2 certificates. And that's why most of the students come from these schools. To accept students, and Thanawiya Amma is going down. I'm a Thanawiya Amma student. At my time, Thanawiya Amma was the only option. I'm not that old, but I'm just telling you. But the point now that all students, even most of our kids now, most of us are in either an IGA or high school diploma or abroad. So these are the students who can pay our tuition fees, and that's why it's logical. But of course, we'll have a lot of money from Dr. Sharif, from Mr. Brian, and, and we'll get more students, inshallah.
Because again, now I see a main problem that even some of those students are opting now to move to education abroad rather than education in the AUC because it's becoming pretty equivalent. That's dangerous because we're losing a pretty good bunch of students that are not now thinking of AUC as an option, and it is becoming even kind of equivalent or even sometimes cheaper to move abroad and to study abroad. So this is becoming an issue now in kind of the whole...
Okay, I'll assume that this question asked to me in a recruitment trip, any of our team will answer this question. First of all, this is not true to say that the tuition fees to an equivalent university is almost the same. With this in back of my mind, I always hear this. I've sent my daughter to a year abroad, and I can tell you there is no even way of comparison of the tuition fees. So let us stick to, and then the other thing is the dollar, and it's not only the dollar, and this is our time to take students because the dollar and the foreign currency are very high. So now to say the dollar 13 pounds, no, I'll keep him at AUC. I think this is the gold time betana.
And I speak as a parent, Randa. I truly understand that it's not comparable, and sending kids abroad is extremely expensive. But when you talk to your kids, they don't tell you it's because it's the same tuition fee, but the value for money there is much more higher. And that's why they're opting for travel. And I think the numbers that we should be looking at is not that we're having 12% of our population from the IB. I think we should know the number of students we're getting from IB represents how much from the IB population in Egypt. So we know how much we're losing to different universities, we're losing students abroad. But I think this is the ratio that we should be concentrating on.
Mahmoud. Dr. Bowditch.
Hi, I was an AUC student and I'm on faculty as well, so I can answer say a couple things. That first of all, to you, it is very different being an international student, and it's not that we don't want to integrate into being. I'm talking to you. Are you leaving? Are you walking out on me? You're leaving while I'm talking to you. Okay. So Provost Sedki is making a very important... Okay, culturally, that's an interesting thing we can point to. Okay, do you need to speak to her first? Okay. So being an international student is very different in that we are, you as Egyptian students have your families around you, you have the culture that's familiar. I know I have students of mine that are now at university in America. When I was there over the summer, I went and bought them sheets for their beds and food, and they didn't know how to function there. What we need, and Provost Sedki is pointing to, is an help to integrate international students into the community. And that we are working on making the university life here acceptable and more recruiting at international schools perhaps and other things that would be helpful. And in addition to that, this is a liberal arts university, and I point to those of us from America know how important that is. And we are not a vocational school. We are not teaching you a job that you will then get in general. We are here to provide you with the ability to think critically and be the best you can be at whatever you are going to do. And that is something that parents, Egyptian parents, are less familiar with than American parents, and that Egyptian students tend to be panicked about. I get students all the time who are, you know, what job am I going to get? My parents want me to be an engineer, and I want to study history or theater. There's an evidence that studying liberal arts and learning to think critically will make you better at whatever you choose to do in life. And so I think what Provost said, and please, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but he is helping integrate that and helping promote that and make that a more powerful experience for international and Egyptian students. So that's, as a student and faculty member,
Thank you.
what I wanted to say.
Dr. Sharif, would you please go back to one of those slides when we have the distributions and the total number of students in the bottom, yeah? Yes, the total number of students.
Yes.
No, not this one. The one that's the whole student body. 6,000. Yes, thank you. For my last 30 years in university, I'm trying to figure out from where we have this 6,907 and what is our limitation for that. For the undergraduate students, I think you are about 6,000 students. We moved from downtown with a little area to a huge area, and still the same number, or we have more students, but I'm not sure from where we have this 6,000 students. I think in strategic planning, we should go how we're going to utilize our existing space, especially after 5 p.m., all classrooms are empty and nobody is there. What's exactly the optimum student body should be utilized in our space? Because I think we move from, we have a huge operational cost that it needs to be accumulated by students or additional number of students. Thank you.
Thank you very much for clarifying this point. It's a compromise between the number of students and the quality of service that we need to provide the students. So this is a very critical issue that need to be looked at in very carefully. The board have very strict reservations on the number of students, and we need to guarantee first that we are capable of serving the existing student body at the highest quality, and then we can, this is another step that we have to consider, whether we are operating at the optimal point or we still can increase. But first of all, we need to assure that what we have is well served using the available resources.
So we're here in academia, so it's not surprising that some of the questions are academic, and there'll be academic responses, and they're important. And I'd like to be able to drill down on them. But we have 2 new critically important personnel announced, actually 3. One will be joining us in November. I didn't see Associate Provost Tolba here. Is he here? I don't know if you wish to say something, but I think that would be appropriate if you'd like to. And George, did I see you here? I did. Our new Dean for Student Affairs. So I see, Heather, thank you for coming. People bringing up the kinds of process questions and cultural dynamic questions. If I'm a teaching assistant, Heather, I want to know how I get action and answers. And now I hear the provost saying we have a new dean for student life, and the associate provost is taking on new responsibilities. Maybe if each of you could speak with us a little bit about how you see it working. If I'm an Egyptian student and I'm concerned about this, or I'm an international teaching assistant and I observe that, where do I go? Do I go to you? Can I do that? How do I do it? Is there someone else? And, you know, if I'm a member of the faculty and I'm led to believe that it's what you pay here, or I'm a parent, and I keep hearing what I'm paying at AUC is equivalent to Lehigh, and I actually believe that, what do I do about it? Who can get me the answer to tell me the facts? Where do I go and how do we do it? Maybe.
Thank you, President Ricciardoni. My name is George Marquis, and I am as of October 1st, the Dean of Students, and I'm very happy to be here. And the first thing I'd like to say is that if we do talk about expansion in terms of numbers, then we would probably need to look for larger spaces to meet in, spaces that could accommodate. We do have a larger space. I'm only half serious there. Heather, I do want to thank you for that question and the others. Most of the questions have been addressing, except for yours, have been addressing recruitment and admissions, and that is the area of my good colleague, Dr. Tolba. But I do want to talk to you for a minute about my vision, which is to have the type of campus that people would want to stay at. Doctor, you talked about people leaving at 5 p.m. and a very empty campus and the operational costs of that. We are looking at an environment that is so inviting that people will want to mix. In terms of the international students in particular, I'd like to say that I am a former international student. I was a study abroad student here in 1981 on the old campus. It was such an enjoyable and rewarding experience for me that it ended up changing my direction, and I decided to come back here eventually. So my experience was great at the time. I used the resources that were available to me, but I do think that international students need to be treated as AUC students, period. They do have issues that are well handled by our international student office correctly right now. But I also think that international students, I see them when I walk around campus, sometimes by themselves. I don't see them integrating that much into the community, and I would like to see more of that. So part of our vision is to create more opportunities for students to mix, and not if, but when the compositional diversity changes in a way that we have more students from other areas, I have a very, very solid and clear plan with all of the team under the Dean of Students to work to integrate the groups on campus so that we are all learning from one another, we are all benefiting from one another, we are all enjoying one another's company and presence, multitude of languages, ESL, native speakers, whatever. But I do think that if you look at the research, one of the main reasons why this is such an important initiative and venture is that companies around the world have admitted that the future is a diverse workforce and that teams must be diverse. And so we need to train AUC students to be able to leave AUC and be comfortable with diverse perspectives, with diverse nationalities, with diverse religions. Not that they're not now, but the more we work and mix, the better off students will be when they graduate. So in a way, what we are doing is enhances the professional opportunities of AUC students.
My name is Ali Hadi from Department of Mathematics and Actuarial Science. First, I would like to welcome the new president, not only to AUC, but to academic life in general. And I'm sure you will fit comfortably here because you will find more politics in academia than in your previous career. I don't have a question or even a comment. I have two humble suggestions from one individual of AUC community. I don't speak for anyone here. And these are two suggestions. The first one, you have all what it takes to do it excellently. And if you do it, you will end up to being an excellent and a great president for AUC. The second, you may not have what it takes to do it, but you can seek help from people who are here, from the business school especially, and from the finance and management department in particular. The first suggestion, I suggest that for you as a president, what we really need is to focus our attention on two items. One is fundraising. Fundraising. That's the first item. Because this is what we really need the most, and this is what has been neglected greatly from your predecessors. Predecessor one, I don't know. The second is to pay attention to AUC endowments. and how it runs and how it performs over the years. And you might not have the capability to do this, but there are professors of finance in the management department. I don't know if they have been consulted in the previous years or not, but I think this is a very important activity that we need most from a president. Of course, we need many others, but I leave these to other fora. Thank you.
Would you like me to respond to that? Or not? Thank you. Thanks for the warm welcome. Thanks to everybody for the warm welcome. It's been wonderful to come back to Egypt, I have to say. With all the headaches, all the stresses, all the problems, I came back not despite knowing about them, but in a way because of it. This is an exciting place and an exciting time in history. I believe exactly what you said, except I put a twist on it. I don't believe I personally have all that it takes. I believe AUC does. The AUC community, the faculty, the staff, the students who are the future, the trustees. I think the brand, the near 100-year-old brand, we've got such resources to work with. Honestly, we're in family here. We're not out in the larger media. I think we're not, many of you have been speaking with me, I'll say in a larger group what I've said in private. I don't see us adding up yet to the sum of our parts. We've got such wonderful assets here that we ought to be even better than we are. And in some ways, I think we coast in some of our reputation. I worry about drawing down the capital of our reputation and not really reinvesting it in a determined way on the goals we share. And I use that we a lot to mean us, faculty, students, parents, trustees, certainly the administration, certainly I personally. Second, on the endowment, we have the trustees coming here in a couple of weeks, very much focused on that. We have a committee that does that. Our endowment has not done well, but neither has Harvard's. I mean, they start from a $25 billion base and they lost a couple billion. And we're about $500 million, and we lost a couple of % or so as well. I'm glad you raised it. That too deserves both an academic and a business discussion with the wider community. A lot of the recommendations I get are kind of keying off of what you said. The need to raise funds, I'm committed. I'm here willing to do that. I just came back yesterday from Dubai, honestly. I pledge to you a wholehearted work on that. Part of the management restructuring is so that the front office, the Office of the President, isn't where every IT problem comes home to roost, where student enrollment doesn't come home to roost, where campus services doesn't come home to roost, where the unbelievable panoply of academic issues come home to roost. I'm hoping that our structure of deans, department chairs, service providers, administration across the board will be so empowered and fired up, I'll have more time not to be the chief fireman and to be out there as a chief fundraiser and represent this wonderful institution to people who care about higher education in this region. So I pledge to you I will do my best, but we're all part of that. Getting international faculty, staff, students back. Why am I here? Because my experience as a young man was like George's. When I came here as a young tourist first and then as a diplomat, I was welcomed into Egyptian homes. I couldn't go to a cafe. I couldn't ride on a train without being invited home. And they meant it, and I went. That's what I experienced of Egypt. I hope, Amr, I hope, every week you're inviting, you and your colleagues are inviting, you're looking out for internationals standing in a corner somewhere and inviting them to your lunch table or to your homes even, if your parents want to have them. That's how you grow AUC and help me raise the funds and help me bring more Americans, especially Americans, here to this great country. That's what I experienced in Egypt. That's why I came back. And that's why I think you'll find the internationals who are here at AUC will come back in the future and bring their friends. We need to ramp that up. Egypt is a frightening place now for tourists and business people outside, if we're honest. My own family and friends are saying, you're going back to Egypt? And I say, yes. Help with that. Help, if you're Egyptian, help your country reopen its doors, bring those tourists back, bring the scientists back, bring the entertainers back, bring the business people back, bring the students back. Egyptians are the best salespeople for Egypt. You don't just rely on Americans who love Egypt. It's got to be Egyptians who love Egypt and love the foreigners who come here. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me introduce myself. My name is Ahmed Tolba. I am Associate Provost now since starting October 1st for Strategic Enrollment Management. So maybe I will address a couple of points and talk about the direction and vision. We are starting with a vision, and we have a way to go. So let me start by what the President just mentioned, that the sums of the pieces are not really turning into a perfect performance. So we need to study ourselves a little bit internally. And one of the projects that we're working on in our units have been working for some time and will continue is to adjust the processes, making sure that the student journey is doing well. We need to identify the problems internally so that we can maximize our performance together. So we want to working on automation, on process optimization, and so on. So these things are going to be available, but the starting point will be data-driven. So we do not want to base it on intuition. We have a strong source of data, but we want to turn the data into information and the information into decisions. And we have done this pretty well last year when I was handling only this dimension of registration declaration, but we'll continue to do that so that we strengthen ourselves. But the starting point, as many of you talked about recruitment and admissions, and this is still something new for me. I'm going to go and explore and hopefully work on over the coming few years. But basically, we need to recognize the problems. So this is my starting point. I'm not going to say that parents are not sending their kids outside. They do. I cannot say that everybody is perceiving AUC as offering the best value. They don't. So we need, first of all, maybe our value is high and it's not well perceived, so we need to market for that. And also we need to recognize the problems and start and prioritize what should we do in order to recruit the right people. So I'm a professor in the School of Business, so I'm talking business now. So I market for it. So I need to study the market. I need to study myself and study outside. I need to segment and check each group. So if international students have problems, this is studied by itself. If students here have problems, we need to listen to them. So everything that we have done, and maybe the student union groups and all the other student organizations have witnessed how we work together. So we'll continue to do that in order to really get the problems done. Another issue that I want to talk about is that sometimes we talk strategy, which is very good, but the devil is in the implementation. So this is what our motto is. We have ideas. There have been ideas for long. A lot of people were talking about them, but we want to refine the ideas based on research and understanding the external and internal factors, which is what we're doing now. Basing a lot of data, we are linking with we're linking with all the offices that provide data and turn this into easy decision making. And then when we go and implement, this is the devil. We say we need to do that. We like to say we should recruit more students. We should make it easy. We should improve the image of AUC. So what are we doing to do that? So we want to turn this from just ideas into specific projects. So this is what we'll do. So we cannot promise exactly what the steps are, but the vision that the provost has set here is very clear. We want to go for it. So if we want 25% of a certain degree, that's fine. If after research we discover that it should be 23 or 30, or we should change the mix, we will have a discussion and we'll come up back to the community and say this is the way we do it because it will maximize our performance. So it needs analysis. So this is one of the things that we'll focus on big time. Another important thing that when I talked about processes is we have silos. That's a fact of life. We have offices, each one is acting by itself, serving with good intention the students, but nobody is taking it from the student perspective. So this is what we try to do. Our slogan is always be the student journey as a whole. So we want to take the student as the base and we see how to help. It's not easy. We have internal processes, internal systems, but with the data we'll be able to improve that hopefully. So I'm hopeful that within the new role, we're going to continue working on these things. And under strategic enrollment management is not just that we want to solve issues related to admissions or recruitment, issues related to registration and so on. No, we would like to have a synchronization. We want to take the student's journey as the provost just mentioned. We select the right mix, and also we need to guide them to the right direction outside. So the link, the thinking of the CAPS office from the beginning is there. So that's why this integration and synergy that we want to build. This is the vision that we have. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do it. It's not going to be, we are going to do 1, 2, 3 now. We need to study it very deeply. We need to involve everybody there, including all stakeholders, and more importantly, the students, the parents. And accordingly, we'll be able to come up with specific actions. And as long as we have a deadline and a KPI, that's very good for me. Coming from business, we have a target, we have a plan, we act upon it, and we'll hopefully deliver it on time. So that's what I would promise, and we'll do our best to do it, hopefully. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Narhani Lethi, a reporter from Caravan, and I have a couple of questions. What is the plan to increase the number of international students and students from other governments? And what are some of the diverse talents that you're looking for during the student recruitment? How can students determine their future, since AUC is a liberal arts education system, when many of them cannot declare their major because of requirements such as GPA? And finally, how can the campus be more welcoming when students get their food from outside and they don't like the campus food outlets? Thank you.
Please.
The first one, but I think that some of these questions, actually the first two would be better answered. I mean, the plan for how to bring more international students, that's your, do you want to address that first?
Well, let me talk. All right, let me address the first 2 points, which are planned to bring international students and the declaration and the GPA requirement, right? Let me start with the first one. This one is a plan. We do not have one specific action that we have right now, but we have a lot of ideas. So I do not want to talk about it in detail now until we'll start on October 1st. So it's a challenge. But we have statistics. Again, I'm a data person, so we'll start with numbers. So the numbers have declined, as the provost just mentioned, but there were some countries where the decline was steeper, so we need to address it very specifically and see what the issues are and address them. So I think we have a lot of ideas, but it's not comprehensive enough to provide a specific answer, but we know that we have a right path to go there. The second one is related to declaration. This is very tricky because this is what I was working on over the past year or so. The university is a liberal arts education university. At the same time, the students coming and the parents' expectations are to join 5, 6 majors, and that's it. And that's a major problem. And this is something that we hope changes. And this needs a lot of education, not just for students, but also for parents, to tell you the truth. But the fact of life that a lot of students want to major in science, in engineering, want to major in business, economics, psychology, graphic design, political science, journalism and mass communication, that's it, nothing else. And that's a pity. And we have brilliant majors that are not really that much attracted. So what we want to do is, we need to make sure that students are well advised. So the fact of life is that the capacity of these majors will not satisfy the total. I was the chair of the Department of Management, and we have 500 students out of the 1,200 a year applying for business. You cannot get them into business, and this used to be called, we do not want the university to be a university of business, right? So we have the dean, my dear friend Karim, we know that. It's a big discussion always, but nothing we can do about it. But what we can do is we need to advise the students from the beginning of having contingency plans. So having a contingency plan means I want this, if it doesn't come, I have another alternative and so on. And they need to understand that AUC is not about the academics only. The extracurricular activities and student life is there. I am an AUC graduate, and I was in engineering, and I did not think that these are important. I was involved in a lot of activities, and this is what brought me into where I am right now, and I was successful in corporate and I came back. This is the part of extracurricular is what brought me to my success, and I recognized it later. So this is what we want to educate students. So let me say that if a student fails to reach a certain milestone, this should not be at a late stage, so things are too late. This is what our office tried to do, is to guide them, mentor them, advise them, so that things move as smoothly as possible. Thank you.
Could I address the issue of diversity with you? I want to be clear about what diversity means to AUC. Diversity does not mean the same thing in every university. We could be in the United States and be at a university where we do not have a student body that represents what America looks like. But we could also be at an HBCU in America, which would have a completely different outlook on diversity. AUC has in its mission diversity defined particularly as diversity of perspectives. And so the liberal arts mission fulfills that by generating discussions, and particularly in the School of HUS, you will see that the courses that we offer, the departments that we have, the faculty that we have, and I'm mentioning we because I'm still the Associate Dean of HUS, and this entails generating discussions about topics that might be new, novel, unusual, creative, controversial, and slightly uncomfortable. But the whole purpose of this is to customize the AUC student to that type of atmosphere so that they are not living in a protective bubble. How do international students play into that? International students, when they are a presence and a significant presence, and you have to think in terms of a critical mass. With one international student in a class, it doesn't make for a productive discussion about things because you don't have a voice with one student. But when we can increase the numbers of students from different areas, we have what I would call little critical masses, people who are able to bring in and have a balanced argument with balanced perspectives in a respective manner. And a classroom is sort of a safe space in the sense that students are able to test out ideas in the classroom, and we hope that the AUC student is receptive to hearing alternative perspectives and has a respectful discussion. Whether they agree or don't agree, that's also fine. But that's mainly what we're getting at when we try to bring students in and diversify the mix. It's in order for all students to benefit.
George?
Yes.
So, I was just going to ask Dr. Tolba, in America right now, AUC, I was looking at how we recruit and the exams that we look at the SAT score and that is khalas, that's it. In America, they are eliminating the SAT scores and scores like that. They are looking heavily at personal essays and a more holistic approach to admissions all across the board. There are universities like Sarah Lawrence who has completely eliminated the SAT as an option. I know students who have gotten in, students of mine who are struggling terribly with language or with capacity, but they were able to, after many, many times, pass the SAT. So I think that, I'm assuming that you are going to be looking at a more holistic approach to admissions, which would also help with diversity and many other things. Is that?
The simple answer is yes, and actually the provost mandated that already. I'm starting that on October 1st, and this is part of the presentation. Definitely, we believe in that. We know that's a problem, and that's why this is one of the challenges I'm facing, is that how to do it. So definitely we'll start by benchmarks, like best practices that are outside, to see how they handled it and try to adapt it to our systems and our cultures, given that we have different degrees that apply. So it's not an easy process because it's not the same education system, but definitely the provost just mentioned the exact word. We're going to have a holistic approach for admission. So definitely this is what we all believe in and will work on.
Hi, Yahya Ismail. I'm a professor in engineering and Center of Electronics and Devices. So my question is about graduate students as well. So here I know we're perfecting the undergraduate studies. So maybe we're 75%, 80% good enough. but we have to perfect it because it's our core business. But I think the graduate studies here is at 10%, and there is huge potential to grow really here, and postgraduate education, training, all these companies and so on. And they don't contradict because we can use them in the after hours. So my question is, should we also find something for the grad students?
Here we are talking about the student body at large. We are not discriminating between undergraduate and graduate. So the whole thing that's presented here and all the restructuring is concerned with the student body at large, undergraduate and graduate. So attention is paid to both of them.
I'd like to add, I'm a member of the data analytics team, and I'd like to add that we work closely with Dr. Tolba, and it's actually very enjoyable, and it's actually very rewarding that it has always an accomplishment by the end of our work. I just want to take this opportunity to raise a challenge that we always face, that we usually do not have data enough on everything. So people here work in the offices and they put so much effort into what they do, but then the data is not recorded somewhere that we can do an analysis on. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to promote the data awareness and how it's important that it's becoming a product for the largest companies around the world by itself. So just allow me that. Thank you.
Right, allow me to steer the direction of the conversation a bit to a different perspective, and I have particularly 3 questions. May I continue?
Please,
Sure.
light
Okay.
behind you, so I see a dark figure, and I've spotted you now.
I have 2 questions to Dr. Sadia and then 1 question to you, Mr. Francis. I'm noticing this trend within the projects towards centralization, where we're putting a lot of the different projects under one office, and it's that office that takes care of it. Now, I was wondering, why are we going for centralization as opposed to decentralization? That's my first question. My second question is, to what extent is this a model that we're being given or we're being informed about, or to what extent are we actually to be a part of the decision-making process? Will we at some point in time actually contribute to the data or not? Will we be a part of the decision or the formulation of these policies? And then my last question to Mr. Francis, of course. I had to leave for a while to take a phone call, so I wasn't really sure where I came in. But I remember you said that we have to be opening and welcoming to people from outside. And that for me triggers a very important question, because the AUC is not isolated from the overall milieu in Egypt. In fact, we're still a very important part of it. And as much as I find that we need to capitalize on the facilities here on campus, the move from Tahrir Square to here has actually affected us in the fact that we are no longer a part of the catalyst for change. We're no longer a part of the mobilization, or we're not a part of the things that happen on ground in Egypt. And for me, liberal arts education is one that actually helps us to be proper civil students, or people who actually take part in civil society. How will we be able to compromise or perhaps solve that problem and be able to fix it, given that we're no longer in downtown Cairo? We're actually quite far away from the center of the action. Thank you.
So let me answer your first 2 questions first. Regarding, it's not centralization, it's better integration of various functions, and actually it's partial decentralization. So maybe you haven't seen the original organization chart of the system. So now what we have done is that we merged all the similar functions that should be well integrated together under the same umbrella. So instead of having one umbrella for the admission and the career advising and all the other different functions, now we have 2 different entities responsible for those 2 different functions. So it's better integration, having a unified vision. There should be a very strong connection to the intake of the students, what's getting on in the educational part and the academic area, and how can this feed back to the system. Regarding the engagement, so this is a dynamic system where we are developing a model where all of us are contributing to that. And I have mentioned this briefly in the discussion. So we'll never be able to do it alone. So your contribution to this process is very important. We are listening very carefully to all the different suggestions and how can we perform this in the best possible way. And that's why we are presenting this today, to get your feedback and to see how can we improve this and get it in the optimal form. So that's not only for you, it's for everyone on campus. This is our university, and we need this to be the best university in the globe. So whatever you have suggestions, whatever needed to be done, we are here to help and to facilitate this and get things done in the best possible way.
If there's no one else with a question, I might add, with your permission, and maybe we'll cap it off. I don't know if we're going a little over. I guess we've got a few minutes, right?
Yes.
Okay. To tie some of this together. So 5 days ago, going to the young lady's question about engagement and how we do this. 5 days ago, a good number of the leadership of AUC on a Saturday went to the Ministry of Higher Education. Thank you, Dr. Salama, for being one of us and for helping to arrange it. Dr. Tariq Shawi, former dean, member of our faculty here, has arranged a project over the past year which has brought in Dean Purinton of our Graduate School of Education, Dean Burai of our Extension School. This was AUC, I was there to speak. We brought American companies, a couple of British companies together with the government of Egypt at the ministerial level, 245 Egyptian school teachers bussed in from all over the country to talk about a major project called the Egyptian Knowledge Bank. AUC's role is as catalyst with Dr. Tariq Shawi. We have these schools that are in from primary education. Graduate School of Education is there to help improve pedagogy and curriculum, to get our students and faculty engaged in Egypt, in education in Egypt. And Dean Burai is here on the other end, postgraduate or non-graduate professional development and things. So we span the field of education. But here's the thing that I think ties it all together. What's AUC doing there? What's our brand? What's our kind of education? Why are we having these conversations about business school interest on the part of parents and students versus liberal education? One of the presenters from a great American company, cutting edge in education, dealing with the disruption in American education. You know, we're not unique here, facing high costs, and parents saying, oh my God, students, what am I paying for? What am I really learning in the classroom? How is this going to affect my future? That's going on in higher education. And in the United States is where the experimentation is going on competency-based education, not only distance learning, that's so 1990s, but blended learning, and postgraduate that isn't just graduate degrees, but life skills. Again, what Dina Burai is doing. The Discovery Education people presented what they're helping to contribute to the Egyptian Knowledge Bank. And this is what I think is us. They reduce it to 4 C's. You know, this is good pedagogy. Find 3 C's, 4 C's, some things, but it makes it easy. And they come from looking at a question a different way, looking at the challenge of education a different way. It used to be, when they taught the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, the question to the student was, what do you want to be? What do you want to be when you grow up, when you graduate? That is last century, probably in the earlier part of last century. Where we are now in the United States, globally, in education, is answering the question for the student, what problems do you want to solve? Not what do you want to be. What problems do you want to solve? And then that drives your decisions as to what courses you take. How do I get to be a great problem solver? I'm passionate about the environment, human rights, equality, economic efficiency. I want to, help alleviate world poverty, hunger, global warming, pollution, food security. There's a rich, rich menu of problems that humanity faces now. What problem do you want to solve, young man, young lady? And I hope along the way it'll be, what do I have for lunch today, and how do I, get to it and get to my class too. No, I'm talking about the problems of humanity. And then, so how do we educate for that? And these 4 C's that Discovery Education means to help with in Egypt, as they're doing worldwide with the content and the media mechanisms to do it, are these. Number one, critical thinking. That's been part of American liberal arts education for a long time. That doesn't just mean I need to be free to shout my opinion. Yes, that too. You should be free to shout your opinion. But really critical thinking, and that means self-critical. Not just what's my government going to do for me? What do I need? What do I need to do to get better, smarter, work better? What do we together need to do? Critical thinking, number one. Number two, collaboration, working together. My wife's a scientist. In science anymore, it isn't just the brilliant person working alone in a laboratory at night. It's a brilliant person working all hours of the day and night on a computer with everybody in the world in her field. And looking at what are the hardest questions, where's the big data, how do I get timely, accurate, relevant, complete data right now, and I need it. So collaboration, communication. How do I connect with the rest of the world, my colleagues across the world, my colleagues in the next department, people who share my interests outside the walls? How do I do that in my language, or in a computer language, or in a different language? A colleague working on whatever my field of endeavor is in a whole different language. How do we communicate? And finally, creativity. And that means being exposed to a lot of things. So if you want to be a great engineer, you can become a very solid engineer and learn mathematics and learn how to use computer programs at any university, any of the fine universities of Egypt. But if you want to learn to communicate with the world, and you want to learn critical thinking, and you want to connect with the world, where better to do it than an American university? And yes, you can. You can look at the economics and you can try to get into Harvard or Lehigh and MIT, and if you can, you should do that. And if you can get the scholarships and your parents can afford it, by all means, we can't compete with an MIT. We just can't. We can't give you Cambridge, Mass. I grew up in Massachusetts. That's a different experience. But what we can give you is a jump on those 4 C's. And I don't know where else in Egypt or in this region you can get it. AUB, we're friends, we're rivals. They're working on this too. We just came from Sharjah, Vice President Dean Abou Futuh and I, on fundraising. We went to see how the American University in Sharjah gets such an international collection of high quality people and manages their funding. They too are focusing on these 4 C's. I think that's what most parents are willing to pay for here, and where they see the value proposition. So I think that answers a lot of the questions that people come up. What am I getting? What's the value for the money? If we are failing to deliver on those 4 C's, then we're failing in a big way. So faculty, staff, administration, parents, students, I hope we're all focused on that, and that's what I will be fundraising against to try to support us being absolutely the best at those things. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you for coming today. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.